Have you ever had a dream so real that you questioned whether you were actually awake? A dream that felt less like your mind wandering and more like a warning? 6 months after my husband died, he appeared in my bedroom at 3 a.m. with a message that saved my life. This is my story, and I need you to hear every word of it, because what happened that night, it defies everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the invisible threads that connect us to the people we love. If you're drawn to true stories about the unexplainable, hit that subscribe button now, because what I'm about to share will change how you think about the world around you. My name is Emma, and this story begins on an ordinary Tuesday night that turned into the most terrifying morning of my life. It was October 17th, exactly 6 months and 4 days after I buried my husband Michael. 6 months of therapy appointments, grief support groups, and sleepless nights where I'd reach across the bed, forgetting for just a moment that he was gone. My therapist, Dr. Smith, told me I was making progress. She said the dreams would eventually stop, the ones where Michael appeared so vividly that I'd wake up crying, convinced I'd just touched his hand. But the dream I had that night, it was nothing like the others. I remember going to bed around 11 p.m., exhausted from another day of going through the motions. The house felt too big, too quiet, too empty without him. I'd kept everything exactly as it was, his cologne still on the bathroom counter, his jacket still hanging by the door. People told me I needed to move on, to pack things away. But I couldn't. Not yet. I fell into a restless sleep, the kind where you're never quite under, always hovering at the edge of consciousness. And then, somewhere in that space between dreaming and waking, everything changed. I felt it before I saw him, a shift in the air like the room had suddenly been filled with electricity. The temperature dropped so quickly that I could see my breath forming small clouds in the darkness. And then I opened my eyes. Michael was standing at the foot of my bed, not the translucent, hazy version from my other dreams, not a memory or a figment of grief-stricken imagination. This was him, solid, real, present. I could see the small scar above his left eyebrow from when he fell off his bike at 12. I could see the exact shade of blue in his eyes, the same eyes that crinkled at the corners when he laughed. And God help me, I could smell him, that distinctive blend of cedar and bergamot cologne he always wore. My heart stopped. Actually stopped, I swear it did. Michael? My voice came out as barely a whisper. His face was twisted with an urgency I'd never seen before, not even in the worst moments of our life together. His eyes were wide, almost panicked, and when he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made my entire body go cold. Emma, you need to leave. Leave the house before dawn. Please, trust me one last time. I tried to sit up, tried to reach for him, my mind screaming that this couldn't be real, that dead people don't just appear in your bedroom with warnings. What? Michael, what are you talking about? I don't understand. There's no time to explain. He moved closer, and I swear I felt the warmth radiating from him, felt the mattress dipped slightly under his weight as he leaned forward. You have to go. Now, before dawn breaks. Emma, please, I'm begging you. Michael, wait. I reached out, my fingers stretching toward him, desperate to touch him, to prove he was real, to keep him from leaving me again, but he was already fading. Before dawn, Emma. His voice was getting quieter, more distant. Before dawn. No, don't go, Michael, please don't. And then he was gone. I jolted awake so violently that I nearly fell out of bed. My alarm clock glowed an angry red, 3:47 a.m. My sheets were soaked with sweat, clinging to my skin. My heart was hammering against my ribcage so hard I thought it might break through. It was just a dream, I whispered to myself, my voice shaking in the darkness. Just another grief dream. Dr. Smith said this would happen. But even as I said the words, I knew. This was different. The other dreams faded quickly, dissolving like morning mist. This one remained crystal clear, every detail sharp and vivid. I could still smell his cologne lingering in the air. I could still feel the cold that had settled into the room. And that urgency in his voice, that desperation in his eyes. I sat there in the darkness, trying to rationalize what had just happened. Michael had been dead for 6 months. Dead people don't visit their widows with cryptic warnings. This was grief, trauma, my subconscious processing loss in weird and terrible ways. Dr. Smith had warned me about this exact kind of thing. Vivid dreams, feeling presences, seeing signs that weren't there. But then I noticed something else. The bedroom felt wrong. The shadows in the corners seemed darker, deeper, like they were holding their breath. The air had an oppressive weight to it, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. And it was cold, not just cool, but genuinely cold, in a way that made no sense for October. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped it. No missed calls, no texts, no rational explanation for what had just happened. Trust your gut. Always. Michael's last words to me, spoken in the hospital parking lot the morning of his accident. He'd kissed me goodbye, headed off to work, and 8 hours later, I got the call that changed everything. But those words, they'd been echoing in my head for 6 months. Trust your gut. And my gut was screaming at me that something was terribly, desperately wrong. I don't know if you've ever had a moment where your rational brain and your instinct go to war with each other, but that's exactly where I was. My rational brain was listing all the reasons this was insane: grief-induced hallucination, stress, lack of sleep, trauma manifesting in dreams. My therapist would have a field day with this, but my instinct was already throwing off the covers, already reaching for the clothes I'd left draped over my chair. I moved on autopilot, pulling on jeans and a sweater, grabbing my phone and keys from the nightstand. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. This was crazy. This was absolutely insane. I was running out of my house at 4 a.m. because of a dream. But I couldn't stop myself. I rushed down the stairs, through the darkened living room, where Michael's favorite chair still sat empty, past the kitchen where we'd shared 1,000 morning coffees. My hand was on the front door handle when I paused, looking back at the house we'd built together, the life we'd planned to grow old in. "I'm losing my mind," I whispered to the darkness. But I opened that door anyway. The pre-dawn air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp and real. The street was empty, silent except for the distant bark of a dog. Every house on the block was dark, everyone sleeping peacefully while I stood there in my driveway, keys clutched in my fist, trying to decide if I should check myself into a psychiatric facility. I got into my car, our car, the one we'd bought together 3 years ago, and just sat there, staring at my house through the windshield. The logical thing to do would be to go back inside, take one of the sleeping pills Dr. Smith prescribed, and get some actual rest. But I couldn't make myself move. So I sat there, watching the sky slowly lighten from black to deep purple, watching my breath fog up the windows, watching my house like it might somehow explain what the hell was happening to me. And that's when I saw it. A movement, subtle, barely there, but unmistakable. In my upstairs bedroom window, the room I'd just fled from, a shadow moved across the glass. My blood turned to ice. I live alone. I've lived alone for 6 months. There should be no one in my house. There should be no shadows moving in my bedroom window. But there was. Someone was in my house. Someone had been in there with me, in the darkness, while I slept. And somehow, impossibly, Michael had warned me to get out. What I discovered next made me question everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the lengths love will go to protect us. And please, subscribe to my channel, because this story is far from over. Trust me, you won't believe where this goes. Let's dive right back. I sat frozen in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles had gone white, staring at my bedroom window. The shadow moved again, slowly, deliberately, passing from one side of the window to the other. Someone was in my house. Someone had been in there with me while I slept. My mind was racing, trying to piece together what was happening. Had they been there when Michael appeared in my dream? Had they been standing in the hallway, listening, waiting for me to fall back asleep? The thought made bile rise in my throat. Dawn was breaking now, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that seemed obscenely beautiful for what was happening. The neighborhood was starting to wake up. I could see Mr. Peterson 3 houses down, shuffling to the end of his driveway to grab his newspaper. Mrs. Kim's porch light flickered on across the street. Normal people doing normal things, completely unaware that their neighbor was sitting in her car, watching an intruder stalk through her home. I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in my house. My voice came out as a whisper, even though I was sitting in my car on the street. I'm outside. I can see them moving in my bedroom window. Please, you have to send someone. Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. Are you safe right now? Are you away from the residence? Yes, I'm in my car. I'm parked on the street. But he's in there. He's in my house. Officers are being dispatched to your location now. Can you describe what you saw? I gave her my address, described the shadow, told her I lived alone. My words tumbled out in a frantic rush. She kept me on the line, her voice steady and professional, but all I could think was, 10 minutes. The dispatcher said officers would arrive in approximately 10 minutes. 10 minutes while someone prowled through my home. Then I remembered the security cameras. Michael had installed them 8 months ago, before he died. Basic ones, but they connected to an app on my phone. I'd barely looked at them since the funeral, couldn't bear to see footage of our life together, but right now? I'm going to stay on the line, I told the dispatcher, but I need to check my security cameras. My fingers trembled as I opened the app. 4 camera feeds popped up. Front door, back door, living room, upstairs hallway. I checked the upstairs hallway first. It was empty. Just the familiar space I'd walked through thousands of times. He must be in the bedroom, I muttered. None of my cameras pointed into the bedrooms. Michael had insisted on that for privacy. Then something occurred to me. If the cameras recorded, I could see when he entered. I pulled up the recorded footage, scrolling back through the night. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. 4 a.m., nothing. 3 a.m., nothing. 2 a.m., there. I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. The backdoor camera feed, timestamp 11:47 p.m. A figure appeared at my back door, dressed entirely in black, wearing a ski mask. I watched, horror mounting, as he pulled out tools and worked on the lock. It took him less than 2 minutes. The door swung open silently, and he slipped inside like a ghost. 11:47 p.m. That was over 4 hours ago. 4 hours before Michael appeared in my dream. 4 hours this person had been in my house while I slept, completely unaware, completely vulnerable. Oh God, I breathed. Oh my God. I switched to the live feed, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. The living room was still empty, but then, movement in the upstairs hallway. The figure emerged from my bedroom, the ski mask still covering his face. He stood there, perfectly still, and I realized with dawning horror what he was doing. He was listening. Listening for any sound, any sign of life, trying to figure out where I'd gone. I watched, unable to look away, as he moved back into my bedroom. The camera angle didn't show inside, but I could imagine it, him standing there, staring at my empty bed, realizing his victim had somehow escaped. In the distance, I heard sirens. The police were coming. On my phone screen, the intruder's head snapped toward the window. He'd heard them too. He stood frozen for just a moment where I could feel his rage, his confusion, his panic through the screen, and then he bolted. I switched to the backdoor camera, just in time to see him burst out into the pre-dawn light and disappear into the wooded area behind my property. 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop in front of my house, sirens wailing, lights flashing red and blue across the quiet suburban street. Officers poured out, and I stumbled from my car, my legs barely holding me up. He just ran out the back, I shouted, pointing. Into the woods, he's wearing all black and a ski mask. 3 officers took off running toward my backyard, while a 4th, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair, stayed with me. Ma'am, I'm Officer Rodriguez. You're safe now. Can you tell me what happened? I tried to explain, the dream, the warning, fleeing my house, seeing the shadow, but my words came out jumbled and incoherent. I was shaking so violently that Officer Rodriguez wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, even though it wasn't that cold. More officers arrived. I heard radio chatter. Suspect fled into the woods. Tracking. Negative contact. They'd lost him. He'd gotten away. We need to clear the house, Officer Rodriguez said gently. Make sure no one else is inside. Then we'll need you to come in and see if anything's been taken or disturbed. Can you do that? I nodded, even though the thought of going back inside that house made me want to vomit. I followed the officers up my front walkway, the same path I'd taken thousands of times before, but everything looked different now. Violated, contaminated. Officer Rodriguez stayed close to me as 2 other officers moved through the house, clearing each room, calling out, clear as they went. When they gave the all clear, I stepped inside. My living room looked exactly as I'd left it. Michael's jacket still hung by the door. His reading glasses still sat on the side table. But knowing that stranger had walked through here, had touched my things, had waited for me. "Ma'am, you're going to want to see this," a voice called from upstairs. Officer Rodriguez and I climbed the stairs together. The lead detective, Detective Collins, she introduced herself as, was standing in my bedroom doorway, her face grave. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She stepped aside and I saw my bedroom, the bed I'd fled from hours ago. The window where I'd seen the shadow. Everything looked normal, except, "We found this in your closet," Detective Collins said quietly. She held up an evidence bag and my blood turned to ice. Inside was a bundle of items: zip ties, duct tape, a coil of rope, a hunting knife with a serrated edge, and a small bottle that Collins identified as chloroform. "He was prepared," she said, her voice tight. "He'd been waiting for you to wake up. This wasn't a burglary, Emma. This was planned." My knees buckled. Officer Rodriguez caught me, easing me down onto the top of the stairs. "There's something else," Collins continued, her expression darkening. She held up another evidence bag. "We found this too, a Polaroid camera, and next to it, a stack of blank, instant film photos. He was going to document it," I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. Whatever he planned to do to me, he was going to take pictures. Detective Collins's jaw tightened. "Emma, I need you to listen to me carefully. This kit, this signature, the Polaroid camera specifically, it matches evidence from 3 other cases. Unsolved cases. You're not his first target." The world tilted sideways. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Collins said slowly, deliberately, meeting my eyes, "that your husband's warning saved you from a serial predator. And if we don't catch him fast, you might not be his last intended victim either. A serial predator. 3 other cases. And somehow, impossibly, Michael had reached across the boundary between life and death to save me from becoming the next victim. But who was this person? Why had he chosen me? And were the other victims as lucky as I was? Or had they not received a warning? Sometimes the dead don't rest because their work isn't finished. Sometimes they come back because love is stronger than death. And sometimes they come back because evil is still hunting the ones they loved. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and fear. I'd been there for 3 hours, wrapped in a blanket that didn't stop my shaking, giving my statement over and over to different officers. But it was Detective Sarah Collins who finally sat down across from me in that small interrogation room with exhausted eyes that had clearly seen too much. She placed a manila folder on the table between us. Her hands, I noticed, were steady even though her jaw was tight. "Emma, I need to show you something. It's going to be difficult, but I need you to look carefully and tell me if anything seems familiar." She opened the folder, and my world tilted. 3 photographs. 3 different women. 3 crime scene photos that I knew instinctively I would never be able to unsee. "These are the other victims," Collins said quietly. "Jessica Martinez, 29, attacked in her home 14 months ago. Sarah Chen, 31, 10 months ago. And Rebecca Foster, 28, 6 months ago." 6 months ago, the same month Michael died. I stared at the photos, my hands trembling. All 3 women looked like they could have been my sisters. Similar age, similar build, similar hair color, and in each crime scene photo, placed deliberately on the nightstand, was a Polaroid camera. "They're all alive," Collins said quickly, seeing my expression. "Traumatized, but alive. He didn't kill them, but what he did..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "What he did was methodical, calculated, and designed to leave them broken. He documented everything with that camera." "Why are you showing me this?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Because you fit his victim profile exactly, Emma. All 4 of you, including you, were recently widowed or divorced. All living alone in suburban homes. All between the ages of 28 and 32. All with similar physical characteristics." She leaned forward. "And all the attacks happened in the pre-dawn hours between 4 and 6 a.m. The exact time Michael told me to leave. We've been hunting him for 18 months, Collins continued. We call him the Dawn Stalker. He's careful, meticulous. He studies his victims for weeks, sometimes months, learning their routines, their vulnerabilities, their habits. He knows when they go to bed, when they wake up, when they're most isolated and afraid. I thought about the past few weeks, small things I dismissed as forgetfulness or paranoia. I felt watched, I said slowly. Things in my house moved. Not missing, just wrong. My coffee mug on the wrong side of the sink, a book I didn't remember putting on the nightstand. My back gate left open when I knew I'd closed it. Collins was writing everything down. What else? There was a man. The memory surfaced suddenly, sharp and clear. At the grocery store, maybe 3 weeks ago, he was standing in the produce section, and he asked if I lived in the neighborhood. I thought it was just awkward small talk, you know? He seemed nervous, apologetic even. I told him I lived nearby and moved on. I barely thought about it again. Can you describe him? I closed my eyes, trying to remember. Tall, maybe 6 feet, average build, dark hair. He was wearing sunglasses even though we were inside, which I thought was odd, but I shook my head. I can't remember his face clearly, just that something about him made me uncomfortable, but I couldn't say why. Collins pulled out another photo. This is a composite sketch based on partial footage from a neighbor's security camera near one of the other crime scenes. Does this look familiar? I studied the sketch. A generic face, strong jaw, dark hair, intense eyes. Nothing that immediately screamed recognition, but the eyes, I whispered. Something about the eyes feels, I don't know, familiar, but I can't place it. Collins's expression was grim. He's good at blending in, forgettable, until he decides he doesn't want to be. Why me? The question burst out of me. Why us? What did we do to attract this monster? You were vulnerable, alone, grieving. He targets women in their weakest moments, when they're least likely to trust their instincts, most likely to second-guess themselves. Collins met my eyes. Emma, the other women, they didn't have a warning. They didn't have someone watching over them. You got out, you survived, and that means you're our best chance at catching him. Survivor's guilt hit me like a wave. The others, did they see him? Can they identify him? He wore the mask the entire time, never spoke, left no DNA evidence. He's careful, Emma, methodical, but he made a mistake with you. What mistake? He didn't count on you leaving, which means somewhere in his surveillance, somewhere in his planning, there's a gap, a clue, something we can use. I thought about my security cameras, the footage I'd watched that morning. Can I see my footage again? All of it, not just from last night? Collins pulled out a laptop and pulled up the files the police had copied from my security system. We started scrolling backward through days of footage, me coming and going, delivery drivers, neighbors walking dogs, normal suburban life, except... Wait, I grabbed Collins's arm. Go back, 3 weeks ago, Thursday night. She scrolled to the timestamp I indicated, 2:17 a.m., and there, parked across the street from my house, was Michael's car. Not just the same model. Not just the same color. Michael's car. The same license plate. The same small dent in the back bumper from when he'd backed into a shopping cart. The same tree-shaped air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror that I could just barely make out. But Michael's car had been totaled 6 months ago. I'd seen it at the impound lot, a twisted wreck of metal and glass. They'd had to use the jaws of life to get his body out. That's impossible, I breathed. That car was destroyed. It was completely destroyed. Collins leaned closer to the screen, her expression darkening. Zoom in on the driver. I zoomed in, the image pixelating but still visible. A figure sat in the driver's seat, roughly Michael's build, wearing what looked like Michael's favorite jacket. Someone was watching you, Collins said slowly, from your dead husband's car, or a car made to look exactly like it. The room spun. How would someone even... To watch you, to study you, to make you feel safe, or crazy, or both. Collins's jaw tightened. Emma, this level of planning, this psychological manipulation, this isn't just about the attack. This is about control. About breaking you before he ever touched you. I scrolled through more footage, my hands shaking. The car appeared again, and again. Always between 2 and 4 a.m. Always parked in slightly different locations, but always with a clear view of my house. Sometimes the figure in the driver's seat sat perfectly still for hours. Sometimes he got out, moved closer, but stayed just out of frame of the cameras. He's been watching me for weeks, I whispered. Maybe months. Learning everything about me, and he was using Michael's car to do it. Why? Why would he? And then it hit me. A memory so sharp it felt like a physical blow. Michael, 2 weeks before he died, sitting at our kitchen table, looking worried. "Emma, has anyone been following you? I thought I saw the same car behind you twice this week." I'd laughed it off. Told him he was being paranoid. "Collins," I said, my voice shaking. "What if Michael's accident wasn't an accident? What if he noticed someone watching me? What if he confronted them?" Detective Collins's face went pale. She grabbed her phone and stepped out of the room. I could hear her making calls, rapid-fire instructions to pull Michael's accident report, to re-examine evidence, to look for anything they'd missed. When she came back, her expression was grave. "Emma, I need you to think very carefully. In the weeks before Michael's death, did he mention seeing anyone suspicious? Did he seem worried about anything specific? Did he change his routine at all?" I thought back, my mind racing through memories I'd buried under layers of grief. He started coming home different ways, taking different routes. I thought he was just trying new shortcuts, but... My voice trailed off as another memory surfaced. He bought a dash cam. A week before he died. He said it was for insurance purposes, but he seemed tense when he installed it. Collins was already on her phone again. "We need to find that dash cam. If it was in his car during the accident, it might have recorded." "It wasn't in the car," I interrupted. "The police gave me back his personal effects. The dashcam wasn't with them. I assumed it was destroyed, but what if it wasn't destroyed?" Collins finished. "What if someone took it? Someone who didn't want us to see what Michael had recorded." The room felt too small, the air too thin. Michael hadn't just saved me with a dream. He'd been trying to save me while he was alive. He'd seen the danger, recognized the threat, and tried to protect me. And it might have gotten him killed. "We need to go back to your house," Collins said urgently. "If Michael was documenting something, if he was investigating on his own, there might be evidence, notes, photos, files, anything he kept hidden because he didn't want to worry you." We were about to leave when Collins's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went chalk white. "What? What is it?" She turned the phone toward me. It was a text from an unknown number, but it had been sent to the tip line connected to the Stalker case. The message was simple, chilling, and clearly meant for me. "Michael couldn't stop me. The grave couldn't stop me. You were always going to be mine, Emma. It's only a matter of time." Attached was a photo, a Polaroid photo. Did he seem worried about anything specific? Did he change his routine at all? I thought back, my mind racing through memories I'd buried under layers of grief. He started coming home different ways, taking different routes. I thought he was just trying new shortcuts, but... My voice trailed off as another memory surfaced. He bought a dash cam. A week before he died. He said it was for insurance purposes, but he seemed tense when he installed it. Collins was already on her phone again. "We need to find that dash cam. If it was in his car during the accident, it might have recorded." "It wasn't in the car," I interrupted. "The police gave me back his personal effects. The dashcam wasn't with them. I assumed it was destroyed, but what if it wasn't destroyed?" Collins finished. "What if someone took it? Someone who didn't want us to see what Michael had recorded." The room felt too small, the air too thin. Michael hadn't just saved me with a dream. He'd been trying to save me while he was alive. He'd seen the danger, recognized the threat, and tried to protect me. And it might have gotten him killed. "We need to go back to your house," Collins said urgently. "If Michael was documenting something, if he was investigating on his own, there might be evidence, notes, photos, files, anything he kept hidden because he didn't want to worry you." We were about to leave when Collins's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and her face went chalk white. "What? What is it?" She turned the phone toward me. It was a text from an unknown number, but it had been sent to the tip line connected to the Stalker case. The message was simple, chilling, and clearly meant for me. "Michael couldn't stop me. The grave couldn't stop me. You were always going to be mine, Emma. It's only a matter of time." Attached was a photo, a Polaroid photo, of me, sleeping in my bed. Taken last night before I woke up from Michael's warning. He'd been in my room, he'd photographed me sleeping. And somehow, despite escaping, despite police involvement, despite everything, he was telling me he wasn't done. But Michael wasn't done either. And what I found hidden in our home, what Michael had discovered before he died, revealed an identity so close to me that I'd been blind to the danger right in front of my face. If you followed this journey from the beginning, thank you. If you're new here, please go back and watch from the beginning. You need the full story to understand what I'm about to tell you. And please subscribe, because what happened to me could happen to anyone. The warning signs are always there. We just don't always know how to see them. I couldn't stay in my house. Not after everything. So my sister Claire opened her home to me, set me up in her guest room, and gave me space to process the impossible reality that someone had been hunting me for months, maybe longer. It was 2 days after the break-in. 2 days of police interviews, security consultations, and sleepless nights. 2 days of jumping at every sound, checking locks obsessively, seeing shadows that weren't there. Claire had gone to pick up her kids from soccer practice, leaving me alone in the house. I should have been resting, but I couldn't. My mind kept circling back to the same questions. Who was he? Why me? And how did Michael know to warn me? That's when I remembered the boxes. Michael's belongings. The ones I'd packed up after his death, but couldn't bring myself to sort through. Claire had helped me move them into her garage for storage, promising we'd deal with them when I was ready. I wasn't ready. But I needed answers more than I needed to protect my heart from more grief. I found the boxes buried behind Christmas decorations and old furniture. 5 boxes carefully labeled in my own handwriting. Michael clothes, Michael books, Michael work stuff, Michael personal. Personal. That was the one I needed. I carried it inside, set it on Claire's kitchen table, and stared at it for a long moment. Inside this box were the intimate pieces of my husband's life, his journals, his photos, his private thoughts, things I'd been too broken to look at 6 months ago. With shaking hands, I opened it. On top were photo albums from our wedding, our honeymoon, our life together. Beneath those were his college textbooks, some old CDs, a baseball from a game his father had taken him to as a kid. Normal things. Memory things. And then, at the bottom, wrapped in a plastic bag, a journal I'd never seen before. It was small, leather-bound, the kind you could slip into a jacket pocket. Michael had never been a journal person, at least I'd never known him to keep one. But as I opened it and saw his familiar handwriting, my heart began to race. The first entry was dated 8 weeks before his death. I think someone is following Emma. I've seen the same car 3 times this week on our street at odd hours, a dark sedan, tinted windows. Tonight it was parked across from our house at 2 a.m. When I went outside to check, it drove away. Emma hasn't noticed. I don't want to worry her, but something feels wrong. My hands trembled as I turned the pages. Entry after entry, Michael had documented everything. The strange car, the feeling of being watched, times when he'd driven different routes home to see if anyone followed. His growing certainty that I was being targeted. I installed a dash cam today. E thinks it's for insurance, but really I want to catch whoever this is on camera. If something is going on, I need proof before I scare her with theories. The dash cam. The one that disappeared from his car after the accident. I kept reading, tears blurring my vision. I started going through E's past, looking for anyone who might have an unhealthy interest in her. Ex-boyfriends, former colleagues, anyone who might have held a grudge or developed an obsession. There's one name that keeps nagging at me. David Marsh. Her high school boyfriend. She got a restraining order against him 15 years ago after they broke up, and he wouldn't leave her alone. I need to find out where he is now. David Marsh. The name hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't thought about David in years, had actively tried not to think about him. Our relationship had started sweet and ended in nightmare. The obsessive phone calls, the showing up at my college dorm unannounced, the threats when I finally got a restraining order. And then, nothing. He'd disappeared from my life, and I'd assumed he'd moved on, gotten help, become someone different. I'd been so wrong. Michael's entries became more urgent, more detailed. He'd found David's current address, only 3 miles from our house. He'd photographed David's car, a dark sedan with tinted windows. He'd even caught photos of David watching me, following me, studying me from a distance. The photos were still in the journal, tucked between pages. My hands shook as I looked at them. David, older now but still recognizable, sitting in his car outside my workplace. David at the grocery store, 3 aisles away, watching me shop. David parked on our street at night, a camera with a long lens visible in his lap. How had I not seen him? How had I been so blind? But I knew the answer. When you're living your normal life, you don't expect the monsters from your past to return. You don't see the danger because you've convinced yourself it's gone. The final entry was dated the day before Michael's accident. My vision blurred with tears as I read his last words. I know who it is. I know what he's planning. I found his apartment today. It's worse than I thought. Photos of Emma everywhere. Journals about her routines, details about her life that no one should know. I'm going to confront him tomorrow. I'm going to make him leave her alone. Get him arrested, whatever it takes. He can never know about this. It would destroy her to learn that someone from her past has been watching her like this. But I'll protect her. I'll always protect her. That's what love means. Those were my husband's last written words. And the next day, his car went off the road on a curve he'd driven hundreds of times, at a speed the accident report said was inconsistent with his usual careful driving, into a tree that investigators noted seemed like an oddly specific point of impact. Not an accident. Murder. Michael had confronted David, and David had killed him. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called Detective Collins. She answered on the first ring. Emma, what's wrong? I know who he is. My voice was shaking so badly I could barely form words. The Dawn Stalker. I know who he is. His name is David Marsh. He was my boyfriend 15 years ago. Michael found out about him. Michael confronted him. And David killed my husband. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, stay where you are. I'm sending officers to you right now. Give me everything you have on David Marsh. I told her everything. The journal entries, the photos, the address Michael had found, the history of obsession and stalking. Collins listened, and I could hear her typing rapidly, issuing orders to other officers. Emma, his current address is 2.3 miles from your house. We're moving on it now. Stay on the line with me. The next 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Collins stayed on the phone, keeping me updated. Officers surrounding David's apartment, the tactical team preparing to breach, and then finally, we're going in. I heard shouting through the phone, commands, movement, and then silence. Emma, we have him. David Marsh is in custody. I collapsed into a chair, my whole body shaking with relief and rage and grief. Did you find, is there evidence? Emma, his apartment is a shrine to you. Hundreds of photos spanning 15 years. Journals documenting your life, where you work, where you shop, your daily routines, and there's more. Photos of the other victims, plans, journals describing what he did to them, what he planned to do to you. He chose victims who looked like you because he was practicing, rehearsing. You were always his ultimate target. I thought I might be sick. All those women had suffered because they reminded him of me. They were practice. Preparation for the moment he finally came for me. There's something else, Collins said carefully. We found evidence related to Michael's accident. A journal entry where David describes following Michael, forcing him off the road. He killed your husband, Emma, and he documented it like it was just another step in his plan to have you. The phone slipped from my hands. Claire found me 20 minutes later, sitting at her kitchen table. Michael's journal clutched to my chest, crying so hard I couldn't breathe. They let me see him. I don't know why I asked. Maybe I needed to look evil in the face and understand how I'd missed it. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I just needed to know that he was real, that this nightmare had a face and a name and could finally be stopped. David Marsh sat in the interrogation room, handcuffed, flanked by 2 officers. When I walked in with Detective Collins, he smiled. Actually smiled. He looked older, harder than the boy I dated at 17. But those eyes, they were the same. Intense, possessive, wrong. Emma, he said, like we were old friends meeting for coffee. You look beautiful. You always did. Why? The word came out as a whisper. Why did you do this? Because you were mine first, he said simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Before Michael, before anyone, you were mine. And then you threw me away like I was nothing, like what we had meant nothing. We dated for 6 months when we were kids, I said, my voice shaking. That was 15 years ago. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. Some things are meant to be. Some people are connected forever. His eyes were bright, fervent, completely detached from reality. I've been watching over you all these years, making sure you were okay, waiting for the right time for us to be together again. You call stalking me watching over me? You call terrorizing other women waiting? You killed my husband. For the first time, his expression darkened. He was in the way. He figured out about us, about our connection. He tried to threaten me, tried to keep us apart, so I removed the obstacle. There is no us. I screamed. There never was. You're delusional. You're a monster. Michael couldn't stop me, David said, leaning forward, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. The grave couldn't stop me. Nothing could stop me from coming for you. We're inevitable, Emma. We always have been. I stared at him, this person I'd once trusted, once cared about, who had twisted that teenage relationship into 15 years of obsession and violence. And I realized something. You're wrong, I said quietly. Michael did stop you. He documented everything you did. He led the police right to you. He protected me even after death. His love was stronger than your obsession. And that's something you'll never understand. David's face twisted with rage, but I didn't stay to see more. I walked out of that room and never looked back. 3 weeks later, I stood at Michael's grave. It was a beautiful October morning, the kind he would have loved. Crisp air, golden light filtering through the trees, the smell of autumn leaves. I knelt down and placed fresh flowers on his headstone. White roses, his favorite. You saved me, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. One last time, you saved me. I don't know how. Maybe you reached across somehow. Maybe my subconscious pieced together everything you'd found. Maybe it was just intuition, or love, or something science can't explain. But you saved me, Michael. You never stopped protecting me, even after you were gone. The rational part of my brain knew there were explanations. My subconscious had probably processed the strange occurrences, the feeling of being watched, the subtle clues Michael had left behind in our home. The dream was my mind's way of warning me, of piecing together danger I'd been too grief-stricken to consciously see. But there was another part of me, the part that had loved Michael, that had felt his presence in that dream so vividly, that believed in something more. That believed love could transcend death, that some bonds were too strong to be broken by something as simple as mortality. I choose to believe you were really there, I said softly. I choose to believe you found a way to reach me when I needed you most. Because that's what love does, right? It finds a way. I stood up, wiping my tears, about to leave, and then I felt it. A warm breeze, sudden and gentle, despite the perfectly still morning. It wrapped around me like an embrace, and with it came a scent I would have recognized anywhere, cedar and bergamot. Michael's cologne. I froze, my heart pounding, and for just a moment, just one perfect, impossible moment, I felt him. Not a ghost, not a memory, but a presence, a comfort, a goodbye that said, I'm still here, I'm still watching over you, you're going to be okay, and then it was gone. I stood there for a long moment, smiling through my tears, feeling something I hadn't felt in 6 months, peace. Thank you, I whispered to the morning air. Thank you for loving me enough to never let go. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for everything. As I walked back to my car, I thought about David, sitting in a cell awaiting trial. I thought about the other victims who were getting therapy, getting justice, getting their lives back. I thought about Detective Collins, who told me she'd finally be able to sleep at night knowing the Dawn Stalker was caught. And I thought about Michael, whose love had literally saved my life. Some stories don't have neat explanations. Some things exist in the space between science and faith, between rational thought and inexplicable truth. Was the dream supernatural intervention or subconscious warning? I'll never know for certain, but I know this. Love is stronger than death. Protection transcends the grave. And some bonds can never be broken, not by time, not by distance, not even by the ultimate separation. Michael kept his promise. He protected me. One last time, when it mattered most, he made sure I would live. And I will. I'll live for both of us now. If you've made it to the end of this story, thank you. Thank you for listening, for believing, for being part of this journey with me. This really happened to me. David Marsh is currently awaiting trial on multiple charges, including murder, attempted kidnapping, stalking, and assault. The other victims are working with prosecutors to ensure he never hurts anyone again. But here's what I need you to take away from this. Trust your instincts. Those strange feelings, those moments when something feels off, those nagging suspicions you dismiss as paranoia, listen to them. Your intuition exists for a reason. If you feel watched, if items in your home seem moved, if someone from your past makes you uncomfortable, if anything about your safety feels wrong, trust that feeling. Tell someone, document everything. Don't wait until it's too late. Michael tried to tell me something was wrong, but I was too deep in grief to hear him. Don't make that mistake. If someone you love expresses concern about your safety, listen. They might be seeing something you're too close to notice. I also want to say this to anyone who's lost someone they love. I don't know what happens after we die. I don't know if consciousness continues, if spirits can reach across, if love can manifest as warnings and warm breezes. But I know that the people we love stay with us in ways that matter. Their wisdom, their protection, their love, these things don't end. They become part of us. They guide us. Whether Michael's warning was supernatural or my subconscious mind processing his investigation and my danger, the result was the same. His love saved me. And whatever you believe about life after death, that's something real and powerful and worth holding on to. Please subscribe to my channel if this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you to trust yourself and protect the people you love. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below if you've ever experienced something you couldn't quite explain. If you've ever felt protected by someone who was gone. If you've ever had a moment where intuition saved you. And if you're in danger. If someone is stalking you or threatening you, please reach out for help. Contact the police, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, tell someone you trust. You don't have to face it alone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my story. And please, please stay safe. I'm Emma and this was my story. Until next time, trust your gut, protect your peace, and remember, you're never as alone as you think you are.